Testing 1 2 1 2. It's your boy Chip G. I am here live on site in my dining room, in the studio, getting it together, and I am excited for tonight because tonight is episode 4 of the In the Pocket with Chip G podcast. I am super excited to be here tonight. I get to sit down with a legend, a man who has toured the world, who has played with some of the greatest musicians and artists of our generation. The theme of this podcast is In the Pocket. And being in the pocket means being in tempo and following the groove of instrumentation that you're performing. This podcast was created to provide information, history, and advice for up-and-coming musicians, background singers, songwriters, artists, producers, and actors. We want to inform you about what goes on in the industry, on stage and backstage. We want to provide insight on how to get the gig, how to get the placement, how to land the role, how to get inspiration to write the next hit. Our guests will provide advice on how to sustain a solid career in the arts with character and creativity and integrity. These successful creators will be giving their story to give to the next generation. They're going to give the keys to success, and that's what we want to do. So let's get started. It's time. I'm excited. Let's get right to it. Hailing from the 215, Philly, Philadelphia, by way of ATL. That's right. I'm honored to sit down with this legend, a drum king, one of the kings of Philly, Mr. Lil John Roberts. My boy John is a father, Emmy award-winning musician, producer, educator, sneaker enthusiast. He has a lot of heat on his feet. Anytime you see him, he's got some dope shoes on, and he always is prepared and ready for the gig. He has maintained 3 decades worth of music. Wow, 3 decades in the music business, and he looks so young. So you'll never know that he's been in the industry that long. This man is one of my greatest inspirations on drums, and he's played with some of the biggest and recorded with some of the best names in pop, R&B, hip hop, jazz and gospel. Artists like Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, George Duke, Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Prince. And like I said, he's maintained a successful career for 3 decades. He's going to tell us all about it. And he's fresh from coming from a European tour. He just closed the semester as an adjunct professor at the historic Berklee College of Music. And I'm super excited and super humbled to have this legendary figure with me. I made this shirt in his honor. I honored some of my drum heroes, and his name, as you can see, is right on the shirt. Calvin Rogers, Aaron, Teddy, Big Mike, Brian, Gerald, Nissan, Lil John, Doobie, Gordon, and Rex. Those are some of the guys from my generation that I wanted to honor with that shirt. And that shirt is available. You can hit me up if you want to rock it. I'd love to see you representing for my drum heroes for the In the Pocket podcast with Chip G. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, episode 4, Mr. Lil John Roberts, my guy. Thank you, man, for doing this.
Man, thank you for that intro, bro. That's a lot.
You're deserving of it, man. You are so deserving of it. You've been in the game for a long time, and I don't want to keep saying that, but that's to be celebrated, right? Because music is fickle. You can come in the game, you can be hot 1 second, and then you can not. You can have skill, but not character to keep you in the game this long. So I want to salute you for that, because you've been the blueprint for all of us, for my generation, coming up, like growing up in Connecticut. I'm from Connecticut, so you were in Philly. There was the legend, the urban myth of Lil John Roberts, right? We all came up in church as church musicians, and there was no internet. So we're all just hearing stories about these mythological figures, these historic figures, and we've never seen them before. So by the time we get to see these people, you're larger than life to us. So I remember I had to be like 02, and you were home. And I know by then you had already moved to Atlanta, but 02, you were home for some reason, and you were standing in the back of a church in Philly. And I had just finished playing with Youthful Praise, with JJ Hairston and Youthful Praise. And you were there just chilling, just kicking it. And I went up to you, and I had a t-shirt line idea that I ran by you. And I was like, yo, if I gave you a shirt, would you wear it? And you was like, yeah, man, just send it to me. And that was like 20 years ago. So as you can see, I'm still a t-shirt enthusiast.
Did you ever send it to me?
I did the idea 10 years later. That's the crazy thing, right?
Oh, okay.
So I always have, as a musician and creative, we always have these great ideas. And I was like, I always knew that I needed to get with prominent people that would help me promote the brand. So I was 20 though. I wasn't ready to do it then. And I ended up doing it later, in my 30s. But you were so kind and humble to me. It was larger than life experience to come up to you, and for you to be that big, huge figure in my life, for you to acknowledge me and, be kind to me. And then fast forward to when I moved to Atlanta, you're running the city, and then you come into the church. You walk into the church I'm playing at, and you sit in the back at Oasis, and everybody's like, Lil John is here. And I'm like, oh God, let me make sure I straighten up and play my part. But it was great. And then you acknowledged me after that. And I was so good to see you, and you gave me props online, and it was a dope experience. No matter what you've done, you've always come back and been humble and been able to show love to the homies coming up. And I just want to appreciate you for that. And thank you for that. And not too many people, because people with your stature, some of them are jerks. And some of them are unapproachable. And even to do this, right? To come on here, we've met each other a couple of times, but for you to take time out of your night, you have all this music to learn, all these shows going on this weekend, but you gave me your time. And I'm super grateful to that, and super appreciative to you for
my
that.
My pleasure, bro. And Chip, you're an amazing drummer.
Oh,
if people don't know, they need to find out. But I know a lot of cats know, but the ones that don't know, y'all need to go ahead and research this man.
Thank you, man. That you're gonna make a 20-year-old Chip cry. I'm grateful, man. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. I don't want the time to get away from us. First question: where did the name Lil John come from?
Dad.
Yep. So of course, are you junior?
Yep. John H. Roberts Sr. Oh, okay, yeah. Cool. So did people ever call you Lil Chip?
Nope, because my dad was Kevin, so I'm just Kevin Jr., but he gave me the name Chip from birth. So I'm a Chip off the old block. So that's how that's.
Okay. So Lil Kevin then.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the funny thing is, you're not even short. That's the funny part.
No, man, 6'2". And
yeah.
I tried to get rid of the little part, man. I can't. It's a brand at this point for me. So I
Let's
just
go.
turned 50 in March, and I'm gonna just be Lil John till I die, I guess.
Let's rock. I'm Chip forever, right? I'm still introducing my name as Chip, right? And I'm like, I'm 42 years old and I'm still Chip, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it sticks and it's part of your legend. So I dig that. That's dope. So let's go. Growing up in the 215, how was it growing up in Philly?
It's funny, you just said 215 and Spanky just texted me.
Oh man, I got questions about Spanky later too.
Man, Philly is a great town. I know I mean, you've been there, so you know what it's like, the musicians and, just the legacy and the history of Philadelphia.
Hmm.
Growing up in Philly was one of the most amazing experiences I've had in my life. Um, I mean, like Stephen Ford, my uncle Stephen Ford, like we all came up under him,
Yeah,
and like his church was like the
Ford
the
Memorial.
home of where everybody would learn their skills from. Because I mean, there were a lot of churches in Philly, including my dad's church,
Right.
but we'd always sneak over to Ford Memorial and hang out with my uncle Steve and my uncle Andy,
Yeah.
and that was just a lesson in itself,
Yeah.
hanging out with Uncle Steve. As a young drummer, he took me in early and was like having me play on records and stuff, like had me playing
Yeah.
sessions with other churches. Those
Hmm.
cats when they used to show up at your church and take over your job with the
Yeah.
choir.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Right.
I was one of those guys. And it was a thing. It was just like, man, we got to go do this session, and
It's the rite of passage, though, right? I've gone through that. I was just joking with Mike Clemens because when I was in my early 20s, I would do the session. They would give me a couple songs, and then they would bring in the real drummer to come play the session. So until you
right,
learn how to do it, So
right. So
that's
they
that's.
had to sit. They had to sit behind you while you were playing, and someone was pretty salty, and
Oh man,
and then
yeah.
someone was just honored. They just like, oh man, he's playing cool. It's gonna be great, whatever.
It
So
definitely teaches you about the game because I cried many tears in them
man,
13, 14, 15 age years.
hey, but we all had to start somewhere too, because I was one of those cats that had to sit back and watch my uncles play. Every
Yeah.
time I wanted to play, my uncle showed up, and it
Hmm.
was like, okay, let me take the back seat and just watch. But slowly but surely,
Yeah.
I was practicing and practicing. The next thing you know, I
Yeah.
started getting up there. So
Moving
then
on
after a
up.
while, I could hold my own.
Yes, sir. I dig that.
But it was great. Like church, growing up in church, everybody that knows that that's where that's your stomping ground. That's where you really put the time in early,
Mhm.
and you mess up and you do good. You mess up, you get praised, you get chastised.
Mhm.
All those things in one. That's all the things that make us who we are now. Just from that upbringing.
You're a PK, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So you had to do everything. You learned the whole business of ministry, right?
Oh yeah, I was
Yeah.
helping my dad change his clothes. I was taking his briefcase.
Yep.
Once he was straight, I go outside. I go into the church, get on the drums.
Right.
That whole
Yep.
thing.
The whole thing. I know all about it, bro. I know all about it. So you were introduced to music. I guess you come from a musical family.
Oh yeah, my mom, she's a classical pianist. My
Wow.
dad used to play bass with the Savettes in
Whoa.
Philadelphia. They were a well-known gospel group in Philly. He actually sang on one of those albums. Like "I May Not Pass This Way Again" is one of the songs he sang. And I
Classic.
remember that 45 that he
The
had,
record. Yeah.
and
The
I
vinyl.
listened to it. But yeah, he had a solo on one of those songs. But he played bass in that choir. Um, all my uncles played drums.
Wow.
So that was just a given that I had to play, after hanging around them.
So you
Yeah,
chose drums from your influence of your uncle, right? Your uncle's playing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope. So
And
you.
one of my uncles, my uncle David, who actually died a few years ago, I think 2019, I think he passed away in
Mhm.
December.
Yeah.
Um, he was an amazing drummer, like just his swag, the way he played. A
Yeah.
lot of my style, I will say, started from him, watching him, like just the way that I played, the way that I
Yeah.
sat up, and the way that I positioned my drums, all that stuff came from him.
Yeah.
Oh, she said
Wow.
she knows the Savettes,
That's my mom.
Patricia.
Yeah, that's my mom.
Oh, so then she might know my dad. I will never pass this way again. That song, she might know that song.
My mom was a singer in the quartet group back in the day, so she knows all that whole music scene. They traveled with Matthew Barber and all up and down the East Coast, so I'm sure they
Oh,
were at some
wow.
concert or something together.
Hey, mom. I
All
love
right.
your son. Thank you
Oh
for
man,
bringing him into the world.
my God, thank you. So you went to a prestigious high school, right? Tell me about
Yeah.
Overbrook.
Overbrook High School was like the music magnet school that everybody wanted to go to, but it was in competition with creative and performing arts, and
Okay.
that was Fame, the
Yeah.
movie Fame.
Wow.
That came from uh, that that what do you call it?
Rivalry.
That school,
Okay.
like New York, but it was the New York Fame that did the movie over.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But the Philly version of that Fame, creative and performing arts, was the one that Amir Questlove went
Wow.
to. Christian McBride went there. Joey DeFrancesco,
Hmm.
Boys to Men,
Wow.
some of the Roots. I think Black Thought might have went there same
Wow.
time with all of them too. So yeah, it was just that was the one of the schools that everybody was going to. But I wanted to go to West Philly
Hmm.
because of my professor that was there, Dr. George Allen. I want to go there specifically to learn and be mentored by him,
Yeah.
which was the best decision that I made because if I went to creative and performing arts, who knows, I might have not gotten the same. I probably wouldn't have gotten the same experience because George Allen knew everybody in the industry.
He
So
was plugged
that's
in.
that's how I met Miles Davis. That's how I met Wynton Marsalis. That's how I met Sun Ra. I met Ellis Marsalis. The whole
Family.
Marsalis
Yeah.
family came to the school with the big band and played. Like all of this stuff was happening when I was 15 years old. So hanging out with Miles, hanging out with Wynton. Wynton took me in as a mentor once we met. Like he was like, all right, I'm taking him in as my little brother.
Yeah.
And then he mentored me for a long time, took me on the road for the first time. And then all of that stuff led up to the next phase, which was me graduating and going straight to Berkeley from high school.
Wow. So you were in a trio, right, at an early age as well, like a.
Yeah, Joey and Chris and myself, we were doing all the downbeat competitions.
Hmm.
So the Downbeat magazine had a competition, which I met a lot of cats from that competition, like Terry on Gully, Phil Davis, Roy Hargrove,
Phil Davis.
um,
Woo.
Keith Anderson, sax player, because Keith and Roy, they were like the duo, that
Yeah.
everybody was talking about. They're like these two horn players. Oh my God! So they were from Dallas.
Yeah.
They went to what was it, North Dallas, or one of those schools there, that famous school there, like Sput and Michael
Yeah.
League and all of them, all
Right.
those guys went to after that generation.
Hmm.
So yeah, we were winning all those competitions. Miles took Joey and put him in his band. And then me and Chris, we left to go to college. He went to the new school. I went to Berkeley. So
Hmm.
we all kind of went separate ways, and
Okay.
our careers just went in different ways. Like I was doing more of the R&B and pop and hip hop stuff.
Mm.
They were doing all the jazz stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's amazing. So did you have any other? Seems like from an early age you were called to be a musician. Did you ever want to be anything else? If you
I
weren't a
was a
musician,
track
what would you?
runner.
Track. So you were into track and field.
Yeah, man. I was a high jumper and a long jumper, and sometimes they would pull me out to do like a 4x4 or 4x8
Hmm.
hundred. I wasn't a fast sprinter, but I was just fast enough to do like the relay and stuff
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was a jumper, man. Like I was a
Wow.
champion high jumper.
Wow.
Like
So
I
you.
almost went to the TAC Nationals, which is like Junior Olympics. Before you go to the Olympics, like you go to the first level before you get to that. But if I pursued that, more than I did drums, I probably would have made it to the Olympics as a
An
high
Olympian.
jumper.
Wow. That's something nobody knows. See, I love that. I love that because
And I
from
haven't told too many people that too. So yeah.
so I got an exclusive. Thank you, man. That's something, because that's something I want to know. I asked Jonathan. Did he want to be anything else? Mike Clemens said he wanted to be a barber. And then you could have been in the Olympics. That's amazing to know, man.
Yeah, man. I had hops, bro.
Yeah. At what age? So like 15, 16, you were
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. So I
So you
was
were
playing
dunking at an
drum.
early age too, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
dunking was easy, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I played a little bit of basketball, but I really, it wasn't my thing.
Okay.
Track, I was definitely into track because I go to the Ambler Olympic Club is what it was called.
Okay.
After school, this was a separate club that you had to join and pay dues, all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
we got taught by Olympic coaches,
Hmm.
and then so if you did well in that organization, you easily could go straight to the next level because they had all the connections to the Olympic trials and things like that. So some of our people that were in our group at that time made it to the Olympics.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Wow.
Yeah.
So growing up in Philly, right? You went to Overbrook, and you have some alumni that are pretty famous that went to that school as well. Will Smith, Will
Yeah.
Chamberlain. I think
Yeah.
James and Tume went there as well.
Yeah.
Juicy Fruit. That's crazy. So Philly's a special city, right? Everybody knows, right? There's few cities like Chicago, New York, LA, Houston, Memphis, Detroit that just breed musicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your city is one of the most special, right? Philadelphia breeds special musicians. Can you talk about the music scene in Philly and like tell us about your family tree? Because I saw and I read somewhere else like from you, you know, talk about the people that came from your legacy or people that you grew up with. You know what I mean? That you already mentioned Joey and Christian McBride. Now let's talk about the church scene or the guys that came out of Philly.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, let me let you know Malik Rose was in high school with me.
Wow.
Malik played in the band with us.
Wow.
He played tuba.
Wow.
And then sometimes he would walk over and play in the percussion section, like he played bass drum or something like that, you know, like little percussion stuff. But Malik, we still friends now. Like he lived in Atlanta for a while after he left San Antonio and was, you know, got the ring with San Antonio and all.
Yep.
He's like a commentator now, and he's helping out, you know, like a lot of cats do after they stop playing. They, you know, mentor other players or they go on, you know, TNT and stuff like that. So shout out to Malik Rose. That's my boy.
He had a great career because he ended up playing, I believe, 12 or 13 seasons or something like that.
Man, Malik was killing, bro. I was so happy for him because all of a sudden I'm like, what? Malik is playing with San Antonio. Like, where did that come from? Because he was younger than me. So he was still at school when I graduated. And I found out that he just turned into this, you know, this star basketball player at Overbrook. And I was like, what? And then later on, like years down the line, like when he was playing with San Antonio, he sent a jersey to me, signed jersey through a friend of ours. And they said, Malik wanted me to get you this. And I looked at it and he just signed his name and said some things on it. I still got it.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, this is crazy. Malik, like, he's a star.
Wow.
It was cool
amazing.
though. Yeah. But yeah, man, musicians in Philly, you asked me about Garfield Williams.
Tree,
Yeah, Garfield Williams. You heard of Garfield Williams? Okay, so Garfield was like one of the session cats that was playing on a lot of the gospel records. Spike McCrae, Howard Kennedy.
Okay.
He played with Wilmington Chester Mass Choir.
Wow.
You know, all of these guys were like the session guys, and like me and Brian Frazier and James Poyser and you know, that was our generation age group, and then there were like the younger ones under us, like Terry Tribbett, Ty Tribbett, Eric Tribbett, Pudge, my God, Spanky. All of those guys, they were like the younger ones under us, like the 10 years behind us or whatever. So it was just a circulation of all of these cats, Vidal and Dre. Because Vidal was playing at my uncle's church. He was playing at Steve's church. And I remember like this one session we did with the Tri-City Music and Arts Seminar with Edwin Hawkins and all. Me and Vidal had done the session together. And it was this one song that Vidal was playing on. He was killing. Everybody's hype. The song was going crazy. And Vidal dropped his stick in the biggest part of the song. Like, you know. And I saw it and I ran real quick and threw the stick back at him while he was playing. So he wouldn't miss the beat because it was like the high moment of this song and it was like the perfect take and everything. It was just like he was going to be playing one stick and like they would have had to do it again.
You saved the record,
I grabbed that stick real quick, threw it at him. He was like, thank you, big bro. So yeah, my boy Vidal, man, that was my cat. He still is my cat. He's, you know, a great engineer with Jazzy Jeff at his studio, and of course, producer extraordinaire. He's written so much stuff with him and Dre, who's also a dope drummer as well. He did some records with us as well with the choirs that we were playing with. one main choir that I was playing with back in Philly was Jehovah Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And if people know about that record, it's like, man, it was
Legendary.
ahead of its time. Like even right
Absolutely.
before Ty Tribbett and his
Mm-hmm.
choir came out, Jehovah Chosen was doing a lot of, like different kind of stuff, like hipper, young hip
Yeah.
hop mixed with jazz. Like we played everything, and all the cats and the dopest cats in Philly were playing on that record, like James and
Mm-hmm.
Terry Tribbett, and the list goes on.
So you mentioned Brian Fraser Moore. He's right behind us, behind you in age, right? So did you have any opportunities to give him exposure or spank, or how did these Philly guys cut their teeth under you?
Well, Spanky, for one thing, used to come to my house. So I used to teach him in my basement.
Wow.
He was about maybe 12 back then.
Mm.
Me and Brian met from our churches. Like our churches used to fellowship a lot.
Okay.
And I remember the first time I met Brian, he came in because his choir was getting ready to sing. And I got
Yeah.
up off the drums. He sat down and he started playing. I was just like, who is this guy? He's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian was nice, man. Like back since the gospel days, church days, like Brian was always nice. And I was like, I like this guy, like it was like my counterpart,
Yeah.
we both had different styles and everything, but we immediately, became friends once we heard each other play. And I was just like a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah.
And all through the years, like I went on and moved out of the gospel world and started playing jazz and
Yeah.
doing all the other stuff. And, Brian was like slowly but surely like following my I don't want to say path, but he was like right behind me doing things as well. Like, once I hit with Janet, he started playing with Usher and, you got
Yeah.
Leah and things like that. And we
Mm-hmm.
were on tour together on Janet's second tour. Usher
Wow.
was opening up for
Yeah.
Janet on the Velvet Rope tour. So every night we're just like, yep,
Homies.
let's
Yeah.
go, and it was a mutual and friend competition. It was
Yeah.
very camaraderie, if you want to call it. And
Absolutely.
we weren't trying to like kill each other every night. It was just like we were having fun. We
Yeah.
were just happy to be playing on the same tour together. So I watch him, and
Mm-hmm.
then I go and he watched me, do my show. So I've just been proud of his success, playing with all the people he's played with. And then after I couldn't play with Janet anymore, I told him, I'm like, yo, y'all should just call Brian. He already knows a lot of the music because he's been out with us. I didn't know later on that, until later on that he had to audition, but I had already told him, like, y'all don't even have to audition him. Just let him do it.
He
But I
got
guess
it.
they took him through the ropes or whatever, but he still, got hired to do it. So that was good.
That's
And,
amazing.
we passed the baton with each other. All of us
Yeah.
do it. If one guy can't do it, he on to the other guy and, vice
Mm-hmm.
versa.
That's amazing. You guys have a sound, right? Everybody is from Philly and they have that Philly sound. Um, who created the drag, the Philly drag? How did that come about? Was that James? Was that you? Like, how did that begin?
I mean, that's a combination of like the neo soul stuff that came
Yeah.
out. We had a certain groove. I don't know,
Yeah.
almost like DC with the
Mm-hmm.
go-go players. The
Yeah.
go-go drummers, they have a certain style. The
Mm-hmm.
Chicago guys got a certain style. The LA guys got a certain style.
Right.
Connecticut,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody's just got their own thing, and it's just I think it just comes from just all of us being around each other all the time, and it's like we just taking on what the other guy might be doing. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not going to say I started anything. You can
Yeah.
ask the other guys and they can
Okay.
tell you whatever. But I mean, I was doing a lot of the stuff around the city, at that time. It was really a lot between me and Brian.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing it or if he wasn't doing it, it was like either one of us. And then it went from there,
Yeah.
whoever else
Yeah.
was in line. But Questlove, him being like the best hip hop drummer
Mm-hmm.
in the world, as
Right.
well as in Philly, like we all looked up to Quest because of his style. Like, no, he wasn't chopping and all that kind of stuff, but groove all day
Yeah.
long. Like,
All day.
I mean, MPC sounding, and a lot of us were trying to emulate that as well. Like, so we were incorporating that into our style as well as like the Chick Corea stuff that all of us was listening to. And,
Mm-hmm.
then I started branching out, listening to Elvin Jones and Tony Williams and all like that. So
Yeah.
It's funny because me and Chris Dave had met around that same time period. Like, the gospel musicians going to the secular world,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
like Gerald Hayward as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
We were all like, you know, kind of like making a transition around the
Yes.
same time.
Yeah.
Gerald was probably the first one that
Mm-hmm.
actually came out as a secular drummer first.
Right.
He was playing with Blackstreet and
Yeah.
Mary and
Mary.
all that
Right.
stuff at the time.
Those
He was
early
doing,
'90s, right? Those early '90s
yeah,
times. Yeah.
yeah. So it was a lot of the stuff happening, but he was one of the first people that I can remember that came from the church. And then, like, we all knew him playing with Hezekiah Walker. And, if Gerald showed up in any church, everybody would just be like, Gerald's here,
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
He showed
Right.
with his piccolo inside of his Gucci bag, It
So
was so
flashy back
crazy.
in the day. I
Oh
remember
yeah, it
those
was New
days.
York. It was the New York thing.
Absolutely.
He had the swag. He come walking in like, oh, Gerald's here. So everybody stands behind the drum set. That whole thing
I
that we
miss
all
that
used to
era,
do.
man. I miss it so much. It's
It
different
was
now.
a vibe.
You
It
can't
was
even
a
get to the
vibe.
stage now in church because everything is produced. But
Right, right. I
I
mean,
miss those
Jeff
vibes.
Davis, rest in peace to Jeff Davis. That's one of my
Yes,
big bros too.
absolutely.
Between him and Gerald, like those two were very influential on the rest of us as
Hmm.
far as like doing the next thing outside of playing in church. Jeff was doing sessions
With Uncle
with
Stevie, right?
everybody, like from
Yeah.
church, gospel music shop, workshops. Then I saw him playing with Phyllis Hyman. Like
Yep.
when I went to Berkeley, the first year I went to Berkeley, they came to the BPC, the Berkeley Performing Arts Center, and he was playing uh,
Phyllis Simon, right?
Phyllis Hyman and my
Jonathan
uncle
DeBose was on
Steve.
that gig too.
Exactly,
We were
Jonathan
just
was
talking
on that
about that.
gig too, but
Yep.
Steve Ford was DMD.
Wow.
So that's why all of them were on the gig. It was like he
Yeah.
took some of the church cats and moved them
Yeah.
over to her gig, and man, they were smashing. Oh my god, I was so proud. Like that's my uncle, that's my
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
bro. All of them, because I was at school and everybody was like, how do you know all these people? I'm like, Philly, yo, Philly.
Yeah.
At around that same time, I was working with Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Wow.
So I was going back and forth from Berkeley back to Philly, record, with them, and then do some shows with them.
Did
By
you know them?
90,
Just know them from home? Did you know Jeff from
yeah,
being in Philly? Wow.
yeah. So my cousin was actually producing with Jeff, who is Craig King. Craig lives in Atlanta now too. Great producer, great keyboard player,
Hmm.
and he's worked with a lot of people. And he was in the studio with Jeff at the time doing a lot of production. James also came in right behind him too and started, acting as a producer as well. I started bringing a lot of the live musicians to Jeff's studio because
Okay.
Jeff was they were all just kind of like production guys, They weren't doing really a lot of live band stuff yet. So I bring all the cats down. We do jam sessions and stuff like that at the studio, and Jeff would record it, and he was like, "Man, I want to do some live stuff, whatever." So you had all Keith Pelzer, who are all the guys that was coming in around that time. Of course, Brian, Eric Tribbett. Who else was there? It was called A Touch of Jazz. So
Okay.
all of us were, slowly but surely making our way into the production with Jazzy Jeff, and
Yeah.
we were the first people to do like the live band recordings with him. Like I Want to Rock Right Now.
Yeah.
That's on Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince Code Red album. And then that same year after, or a little bit after, we did the American Music Awards.
Wow.
And that's where
That's
I was doing the stand-up drum set.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Mhm.
from what year is that? Like early '90s?
That was 94 when we did
94.
American Music. So I'd already moved to Atlanta by then.
Okay.
That was my
So
first year in Atlanta.
couple years at Berkeley. How was that experience?
That
Quickly.
was great. I
Yeah.
mean, I honestly say I learned a lot outside of the school, just because of all the great musicians that were there. So my focus was a little different. Like I was trying to connect with as many players as possible. I wasn't really thinking as much about the school,
Yeah. Yeah.
at that time, because I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, Berkeley's cool, but these bad cats around here, like I want to play with them and record
Yeah.
with them. So my whole thought process was different. I wasn't even going to my drum instructor for my private instruction class and stuff.
Yeah.
I was really I was doing my own thing, for the 2
Networking.
years that I was there.
Yeah.
I went to some classes, I was really like that kid that was like, I see a bigger picture already,
Yeah.
and this isn't it,
You had surpassed it already, right? Your mindset was already out there. You had a taste of what the world was
I was
going.
like, I want to be on tour now.
Yeah.
And it's
And you were
weird
ready.
now. Yeah, I mean, I was already, going back and forth on the road. So from the school, I was like, I was always gone.
Mhm.
Um, Abe Laboriel was there. Abe Laboriel Jr. Like me and him were just. It was like if Abe didn't do whatever it was, they called me. I
Yeah.
was second string. Yeah,
It's okay.
because
That,
Abe had already made his mark at the school,
of
so
course.
he did all the big concerts that they called people for, the singer showcases and all that
Hmm.
stuff, the big things, in the BPC. And if Abe couldn't do it, because he might have been on the road somewhere, with his dad or something, they called me after that.
Wow.
But it was cool hanging out with Abe, watching his process as a drummer,
Hmm.
because he played everything. He played rock, he played jazz, he could play some funk. I just kind of mirrored Abe for a while, just kind of followed him around. Just he read really well. So
Yeah.
some of the times he would call me in to fill in for him, and I had to read the charts that he was reading. And
Yeah.
I wasn't on the same level of reading as he was. So I was
Got
just
you.
like, oh my God, I got to get my reading up,
Yeah.
which made me push to, learning how to read better from
Yeah.
that experience, just so I
That's
could keep up.
that's so cool. So from uh Boston, you moved to Atlanta. You make the decision to move to Atlanta. Why Atlanta?
Man, I knew nothing about Atlanta at the time, but
Hmm.
I actually moved to Birmingham, Alabama first. I was with Eric Essex, who's the guitar player from Birmingham. Everybody knows him. We
Hmm.
did a record in Boston while we were all at school. He
Hmm.
graduated, and he was like, "Man, I'm going back to Birmingham. I know you kind of have an idea that you want to move on and tour and play and stuff." He was like, "Well, let me know if you want to come over to Birmingham and perform, live and do some shows in different cities, maybe in the region or maybe outside of the region." And I was like, "All right, I'm ready to go." So here's a perfect way for me to roll out. So we
Yeah.
got in a van, we drove to Birmingham from Boston.
Hmm.
I took everything with me, my drums, my clothes, I ain't have a whole lot. So
Yeah. Right.
but what I did have, I took with me, stayed in Birmingham, played with Eric around the city, and played, some shows outside of the city and stuff.
Hmm.
And we had a show in Atlanta,
Wow.
and I was like, Atlanta, Georgia. Like I knew nothing about Atlanta. I
Right.
knew nothing about Birmingham.
Yeah.
Coming from East Coast,
Yeah.
Philly hat, I was
Right.
just, it's like I'm from up north, coming to the
Exactly.
South, just that whole vibe. Um, when we played in Atlanta, I was like, yo, this city is cool. I
It's
like
a
the
vibe,
vibe
right?
here.
Yeah.
I met this cat, Jason Orr. He came to
Mm.
the show, and he's from here and he knows the whole city and everything. Like he's like, man, just come hang out, man. Check out the city. I'll show you around. You can see if you like it. And so I would come down and visit for a little while, and I'd stay at his place. We go out at night. He'd show me the night scene and just what Atlanta was offering at the time,
Hmm.
the underground house stuff, and I just got a chance to see like Atlanta for what it really was, like
Yeah.
the from a native's uh, perspective, not from a tourist perspective, but from somebody that lived here and was from here. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm moving here.
Yeah.
The music scene that I saw, it
Hmm.
was it was a cool music scene. Everybody was experimenting. You know, I think Outkast was just coming out, so they were
Taking
they
off.
were getting big at
Source
that
Awards
point,
time, right?
huh?
The Source Awards time where the South got something to say, right?
Yep,
Yeah, around that
exactly.
time. Yeah.
So Goody Mob was just coming out.
Hmm.
I met a lot of people from LaFace Records.
Mm.
Shanti Dodds, who's still my friend now. Shout out to Shanti. She
Hmm.
was working with L.A. Reid. I met L.A. Reid through her.
He's a drummer
Um,
as well, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So all of these things was just connecting dots for me. And when it was time that I moved over here, immediately I went to work. I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm putting stuff together. I'm playing shows like underground stuff. I'm playing at Teddy's Live at the
Wow.
Underground. You know, it was one of my first gigs. Oh, I played there with Eric first, actually. We played there and he would come back and we do some more shows there. And then some of the cats that I met here, Sonny Emery, I had already met Sonny Emery in Philly when I was 16. He was there playing with Dave Sanborn one day, and I went up to their sound check and walked up to him on stage and just talked to him while he was sound checking.
That's cool.
And we became cool after that. As soon as I moved here, matter of fact, Sonny invited me to come down to his drum clinic that he was doing at his old school. And so I went down there. He was like, you want to play? You want to play a song, you know, in front of everybody? I was like, sure, you know.
Yeah.
So he called me up. He's like, we got this young drummer from Philly that I've known, you know. He lives here now, Lil John Roberts. I'm going to let him play. You know, I still got the videotape of it, actually. It's crazy.
Cool. Nice.
I need to transfer that because it's
Right.
on VHS. And I played a song with Phil Davis was playing keys, and
Monster.
Derek Scott, guitar player, like a lot of the ATL A-list musicians was there that night. Tony Cunningham was playing bass. I don't know if you guys know him, but I haven't seen him in a while. But a lot of these cats have been on the scene for a long time doing everything. Right. So that opened some doors for me because everybody got to see, you know, who I was for the first time in Atlanta. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but so I'm around the city starting stuff. You know, I'm like, okay, I see there's a void here. I'm about to like do my Philly thing in Atlanta, you know.
Right.
And I found cats that I wanted to put as a band, and I formed my band, The Chronicle.
Yeah.
And then I found a spot where we could play every week. They said, man, we'd love for you guys to play here or whatever. Every Thursday night we were at the Yin Yang Cafe. Wow. Did you ever make it to that? Were you here then?
I heard about it. I've never been there though.
When did you move to Atlanta?
6 years ago.
Oh man, you missed the 90s.
But I was always down here. I just wasn't there in the 90s. I was a little too young for that one, but I came around right after that.
Okay, so anybody that knows about Atlanta from in the 90s knows like it was a vibe. It was a thing going on, and I started this vibe at the Yin Yang, and that was a spot where a lot of people came and sat in with us and was working things out, trying things out. Anthony David, India Irie, you know, before they were anybody. You know, this is like people like getting to figure themselves out. Yeah. And we had we had a place that we could practice and, you know, get our thing together as well. We were playing hip hop music mixed with jazz and whatever. Like it was just a jambalaya of music that we were doing at that spot. So everybody was coming there every week, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing because those are the times that people will never forget. Those are stories that you'll never forget. And like you established the culture, you brought your sound and your style down here, and then you formed the team, you know, and just made it happen. That's super crazy. So
all the church boys were sneaking down there, like Trey Gilbert and a bunch of them. I mean, he'll tell you the story. If you ever talk to Trey, he'll tell you like, man, we used to sneak down there after church, you know, and try to come in there and see what they were doing. And they go back to church and start playing the stuff we were playing.
That's all of our story, man. That's all of our story. You know, I had a sheltered upbringing and I couldn't really listen to that stuff, but any chance I got, if I could listen to something and pull from it, I would. So that's cool. So you moved to Atlanta, you make a name for yourself. You start playing for other artists and you started your band. When do you start touring?
The first tour that I did was Dion Farris.
Okay.
And that was like a 12-passenger van type deal. She was just coming out she had already been singing with Arrested Development. So everybody knew her from Won't You Help Me? Won't you help me understand? Like everybody knew her from that. And then she came out with her own album. Randy Jackson was, you know, she was under that whole umbrella with, was it Sony or something like that, maybe?
Okay.
So we went out to promote her record. Next thing you know, while we're out on the road, I get a call to go out with Janet.
Wow.
And that was that same year that we were out with her.
So who found you? Who put you on? Who called you for that?
For Janet?
Yes.
Well, it was a combination of a bunch of musicians that I was working with at the time. Sam Sims, bass player. all of them spoke about me.
Yeah.
Daryl Smith, Sonny Emery, Omar Hakeem even vouched for me. Because we had met at a certain time in Atlanta before all of that too. He came down for PASIC one night,
Wow.
and I met him and we became good friends. He came to see me play one night and I didn't know he was there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the Chronicle was playing at this funk jazz event,
Mm-hmm.
down Auburn Avenue. The Escovedos came that night as well. They all was hearing about the band, so they,
Yeah.
and they heard about me. And Omar came with my buddy Ronnie Garrett,
Mm-hmm.
and Ronnie is another person that was talking about me to other people. So it was all word of mouth with a lot of
Yeah.
things because, like you said, we didn't have social media and things like
No.
that back then. It was like talk, and some people had VHS tapes and stuff or little camcorder stuff or whatever of us playing.
Yeah.
And PASIC was that week, so I went to PASIC the next day, and Papa Escovedo called me up to sit in with them, Sheila's dad.
Yeah.
I came up there, played with the band. I go sit down, and then he says, "And we got Omar Hakeem in the house too. Come on up, Omar, and play." I was like, my
After you.
idol. This
Yeah.
is my biggest idol.
Yeah.
Somebody that I patterned a lot of my style after.
Mm-hmm.
Between Dennis Chambers and Omar, like Omar was the main guy that's just
Yeah.
that was the guy that I wanted to play like. I
Yes.
set my drums up like him. I was
Yeah.
playing Pearl.
I can see that too.
Everything that Omar did, I wanted to do.
Right.
I got an old picture I'm gonna show you
Okay.
when we first met. My girlfriend at the time snapped a shot of us while we were talking, and I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna text it to you.
Okay. Cool.
But we became cool after that, man. He came up right after me on the drum set. We shook hands. I was like, "Hey, Omar." He was like, "Man, you sound good, man. Let's talk later." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God." So since that day on, me and Omar had gotten close. And I went to New York to hang out with him. And while I was at his house, they called him. Coincidentally, they called him and was like, "Omar, there's this cat named Lil John, that everybody's talking about. We want to know, what do you think about him and all like that." I don't even know if they knew that we knew each other or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe. This was a tight clique of musicians, the A-list musicians that knew each other. Rex Salas, Sam, all these people, Daryl Smith, Ronnie Garrett, all of them knew each other.
Yeah.
And so maybe somebody said, "Hey, Omar knows Lil John," or whatever. So he calls him while I'm at his house.
Wow.
I was asleep. I went to the room, slept for a little while. I was a little tired. I got up, I came down to the kitchen, and Omar was like, "Man, I just got finished talking to Janet's music director."
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, "You gonna do it? Like,
Wow.
you gonna do the tour?" He was like, "No, I'm not doing it. They called me to ask about you."
Whoa.
And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, man. I just told them they need to get you, man. You
What
ready?"
age are you at this time?
I was 23.
23. And
He
got
was
the
like,
biggest
"Yeah,
call
man."
of your life.
He was like, "You're ready. You should do this gig." And I told them that they should hire you. After everybody, all the other cats had spoken highly of me too. So Rex Salas was like, "All right, Omar says he's cool, so we gonna pull him in."
And how long did you do that gig? How many years?
25 years.
25 years.
Off and on,
Off
25
and on.
years. Like Brian did All For You tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't do All For You tour because I had committed to George Duke's tour. Like a few weeks before they called me about that next tour, because I did the Janet tour first, which was 94, 95.
That's the epic album cover, right? With the hands, right?
Yep.
The Janet tour.
And not too many people knew that or saw anything from that because there was no way to, film it or anything like that. My girl at the time, like I said, she videoed some of it on my birthday one day. I have, some clips of that.
Yeah.
But other than that, if you didn't see it like from MTV, because MTV was capturing some other stuff, but they wouldn't put the whole show out there, so you wouldn't have known it I was playing. Wow. The first time they covered it, Jonathan Moffett was playing.
Wow.
So, it just moved on to the second half of the tour, and that's when I came in.
Wow.
But nobody knew that.
You came after Sugarfoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he did the.
Who was Michael Jackson's drummer?
He did the U.S. tour. He did the U.S. leg, and then they took a break and they were getting ready to go overseas and start in Australia. And that's when they needed another drummer. So, I had to come in and learn all the stuff that Moffett was playing. I had to learn electronics.
Yeah,
That's
all
my
the
first
triggers and
time
everything.
learning triggers and all that stuff,
Mhm.
because that was kind of next level. Like nobody was doing that
No.
like Jonathan was with Janet. You had to play triggers for that gig. So we had racks and stuff of
Mhm.
sounds and stuff behind us. Now we don't need none of that stuff,
No,
but
no.
we
It's all
have
on the thumb
racks with,
drive.
S1000s and stuff
Yep.
like that with the floppy disk,
Yes.
and we were using drum cat. I was using a drum cat, and I had triggers on the kick and snare, and maybe some little poles with the
Mhm.
extra sounds on the pads. But that was my first experience of using triggers was that.
Bro, we're gonna have to do part two because I know you have to go, but
We definitely got to do part two.
I know we got to do part two because I didn't even scratch the surface of the things I wanted to ask you. Um, Give me the you did Janet for 25 years. You played on that off and on. That was an amazing experience, and then you went off to do amazing other things. Give me the Michael Jackson story. How you had an opportunity to work with Mike.
So I went to his house, his music director's house, Brad Buxter, who also knew all the same people. All of these clique of musicians that I'm talking about
Yeah.
did all the gigs. Don Boyer, all those guys. Like Don Boyer was Michael's bass player,
Wow.
and I looked at Don Boyer like a star on his own. I was like that's the 7-foot dude,
Yeah.
playing behind Michael with a Ken Smith with his
Yeah.
hair, the mohawk hair and all. I
Yes.
was just like, these guys were like the stars to me,
Right.
just as much as Michael and Janet or any of them. Like
Mm-hmm.
the Rhythm Nation band, like Chucky Booker and DOA and Derek Organ and Tommy Organ, all those guys. We were looking at them like, like,
Yeah.
man, we were all trying to be like them. So Brad Buxter, I don't remember how I met Brad, but this is what I got to say. A lot of the jazz musicians at the time were playing the pop gigs too.
Okay.
So, I mean, and when I say jazz, more like the contemporary stuff like
Mm-hmm.
George Howard, George Duke,
Yeah.
Grover Washington, all of those guys that were playing those kind of gigs back then, real funky jazz stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were the ones that was moving over and playing with Janet and playing with Madonna and all,
Yeah.
like they would call all of these guys to, be in the band. And Omar Hakim as well. Like, he was playing, Omar would play with Sting. He would play with Omar had played with Weather Report before any of the pop stuff. Like he did a lot of stuff. What's that major song? Oh, Chic.
Yeah.
He was playing with Nile Rodgers and stuff. Like a lot of those records,
Yeah.
So as much as they were doing the studio work, they were doing the live stuff with contemporary jazz and all, and they played the pop stuff. So I know I met Brad through one of the guys in Janet's band or whatever.
Yeah.
So Brad hits me up and is like, Michael has a song I want to see if you can play on. And, if you come over to the house, I was going to LA a lot doing records at that time.
Okay.
And I think that's what kind of started the whole thing. And he was like, come on over, there's a track that I think would be great, for you to play on for Michael. So I go over there. He's playing the stuff for me. I'm like, man, this percussion is killing, I'm like, who's that playing percussion? Is that Paulinho? Is that Louis Conte or whatever? He's like, no, that's Michael. I'm like, huh?
What?
Michael's beatboxing, that's all the percussion parts, like the shakers, like everything that was on there, he did it with his mouth. I was like, wow.
And they left it or they had to reprogram it?
Nah, I played on top of it.
Okay. Oh.
That was my click track. It was like, you're going to play along to this. And I just thought it was like Paulinho da Costa, somebody that played the percussion parts, because all of them play on all the records,
Yeah.
And they're like, no, that's Michael doing it with his mouth. I was like, I was floored before I even got a chance to play on the song. And then Michael, they're like, oh, we're going to, Michael's in New York. So he's going to check in with us on a satellite. Like he had a video thing set up. So he
via
could see
satellite.
me.
Remember that used to be the thing, via satellite? Wow.
Right. So he was watching me from New York and I could see him from LA. And so he was just like, just do whatever you feel. It was like, really? I'm like, what do you want me to play? Like I was real professional,
But he knew
about
you from
it.
Janet, right? He knew you from being with Janet, right?
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah,
he knew you were the real deal.
And that's what all led up to the next thing too. After I played on this song, which I never got a chance to hear, I think it was
Ah,
something for Korea. Michael was doing a lot of different projects to help people raise money in different
yeah, yeah,
countries
yeah.
and stuff. So this one song that we did, it sounded like a "We Are the World"ish kind of thing, like, but it
Okay.
was, it was his version for Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and nice groove from what I remember. And the first take, they loved the first take, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, no, I got to do this again. Like I probably did about 4 or 5 takes, and they
Right.
were just like, okay, just do whatever you need to do. They were already set.
Sold on the first
They
take.
were sold on the first take,
One
but
take,
I'm
Jake.
trying to make it like perfect. I'm like,
Right.
no, 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 I got to make sure this before I leave here. This
Yeah.
got to be my best work with Michael. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Michael Jackson.
Of
So
course.
I leave there, and like maybe later on that year or a year later, something like that, he calls me. Brad calls me and is like, John, Michael's on the phone. We want to see if you would like to come out with us on this Invincible tour, which the Invincible record. And that was 2000, I think. It was the year that 9/11 happened.
Oh wow.
So that never went out. They did a few dates. Sam was playing bass. Sam Sims
Mm.
played bass on that. They did like some spot dates.
Okay.
So I didn't make that because I had told Michael that I was working on my band. I was working on the Chronicles record at that time.
Wow.
We were
Okay.
we were signed to Jermaine Dupri's one of his side labels called
Okay.
Anunnaki, and
Wow.
I felt like I can't leave my band hanging. Like,
Yeah.
I can't just roll because I was already leaving the band a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I had Rick Jordan under me, like that was like my little brother back then,
Mm-hmm.
playing a lot of the stuff when I wasn't there. So he was filling in for me, and I just felt bad. I was like, man, this is my band, and I'm not even there. So
Yeah.
once we signed with Jermaine, I was like, all right, I'm gonna stay
Lock
and
in and just
finish
devote
this,
your
yeah,
time. Yeah.
as the leader.
Yeah.
So I told Michael what the deal was. He was like, I totally understand. Congratulations. I'm glad you're doing something on your own.
That is crazy.
And I'm in the car. I was in the car. I was in my car talking to him on my cell phone because I had,
The
like, yeah,
big ones
the
that was in
big
the
one.
car. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, it wasn't a big. It was probably a flip by then.
Oh, the flip by then. Okay. What year is this now?
This is 2000.
2000. Oh yeah,
So
we had
yeah,
those.
we had the Nokia phones
Yeah.
and all that stuff by
The
then.
battery never died, right? It just stayed.
Right. How? Yeah, right. So I'm sitting in the car. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm saying no to him right now. Like,
You
I
told
mean,
Michael
wow,
Jackson.
is
You
this
told
something
Michael
I could do?
Jackson no.
If there's something that I could do to make this happen, like what can I do? I just let it go. And I was just like, man, I gotta keep my word with my band. So that's how
Wow.
that happened.
Those PK principles, being honorable that your parents raised you with.
Loyalty, not knowing that
Loyalty. Yeah.
I could have done both things.
You absolutely could have done both.
And then I think I told Jermaine later, and he was like, "What? You could have totally done that tour." He's like, that would have been a plus for the whole record and
For the
everything."
whole, yeah. Oh man, we got to stop there, man. I know you have to go. Thank you, John, so much for your time. We have to do part two, so I'll be reaching out to you to find out your schedule. Tell me what's going on this weekend. What you have going on this weekend in your
Man,
social
we've got
media.
the jazz festival here, so I've been preparing. I'm doing a Marvin Gaye tribute Saturday night here. Really cool. The cat that's singing, Chase Stevens. He looks and sounds just like Marvin. So
Yeah.
I got the crew playing with us, and then Monday I'm doing 7 o'clock p.m. With a lady named um, oh my God, Kathleen Bertrand.
Okay.
So we're playing right before um, Kenny Barron. Kenny Barron
Okay.
is playing, but Herbie's playing Saturday night.
Oof.
Herbie's playing at like 9 o'clock, and then after Herbie's show, our show is in Park Tavern
At 10
Saturday night.
o'clock. Yeah.
Mhm.
See, my wife, I'm gonna try to bring her out there to come see that. She loves the Marvin Gaye
Oh,
tour. So.
man, yeah, come on.
All right, man. Thank you so much. What's your social media? Shout that out.
All at Lil John Roberts, LILJOHN Roberts.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. This is part one, right? You promised we're gonna do part two later.
I got you.
All right.
I'm going to see Kenny Garrett now. He's playing
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking time out of your schedule, man. I'm here with the legend, man. Thank you for sitting down with me, and we're gonna do part two soon.
Pleasure, man. Thanks, bro.
Thank you, my guy. Talk to you soon.
Yes,
All
sir.
of my people that have tuned in tonight, thank you so much for taking time out of your Thursday evening to rock with us. It was truly my honor to sit with Lil John Roberts. The man has done, we haven't even touched, we just scratched the surface of what he's accomplished. We're going to do part 2 and hear the rest of his story. Thank you so much for coming out and rocking with us. Please subscribe to the page. The content will be available on audio podcast outlets tomorrow. That is iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It'll be available on YouTube and also for Facebook Live for you to review. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Bridge Parker. Bridge Parker Handbags. I'm speaking it into existence. So Bridge Parker is my first sponsor. So fellas, if you need a bag for your wife, go check out bridgeparker.com. Every look needs a bag. Did I do it right, babe? I hope I did. All right. Our next show will be coming up, and we have an amazing guest coming up. Super producer Troy Oliver from Connecticut by way of Atlanta now will be here on June 8th, and we will be interviewing him. He has worked with J-Lo, Chris Brown, Pop Smoke, Trey Songz. He is a super producer. He's from my home state, and he's going to come on and tell his story. He's going to help us get in the pocket, help us find our groove, tell us his story on how he came from New Haven, Connecticut to superstardom. So thank you for this opportunity. Check in on June 8th and support the pod. Share, share, and repost. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Continue to stay in the pocket. Find your groove. Find your niche. This is your boy Chip G. Signing out. Thanks.